Hello and welcome to another Warhammer Vermintide 2 build video. You might remember this from the last time, but this time the sound should be a bit better. So today we want to talk about the Grail Knight career and how to choose skills and talents and equipment for him. So let's get right into it. Let's have a look first at the talents, and we're starting as always with the passive ability, the career skill, and the perks. So the passive ability is the Lady's Duty. Upon entering a mission, the Lady of the Lake grants 2 random duties for the Grail Knight and his party to complete. Upon completion of a duty, the party is granted a pension for the rest of the mission. Meaning at the start of your game, you will get 2, or depending on which talent you choose later, up to 3 different quests, which have a span of, collecting tomes, collecting grimes, killing monsters, or killing just normal enemies. And if you fulfill it, you will get a special reward in relation to the quest you completed. Your career skill is the Blessed Blade. Marcus equips a Blessed Blade and slashes down with great force, smiting any evil creature caught in his wake and dealing heavy damage. And his perks are Knight's Challenge, deals 25% more damage to the first enemy hit. Thirst for Glory, increases the movement speed by 10%. And Bastion of Bretonia, Marcus can use shields to block warp fire throw attacks, meaning you cannot be hit by a warp fire thrower anymore if you are equipping any kind of shield. So much for the basics. Now we will take a look at the talents, starting with level 5 and Lady's Generosity. Staggering enemies with a melee attack grants temporary health, and the health is gained based on the stagger range. And Lady's Wrath, melee killing blows restore temporary health based on the health of the slain enemy. And Gift of the Grail, you know this one probably. If you heal yourself with a first aid kit or with a healing draft, you also heal nearby enemies for 20% of the maximum health. In regarding to this, I would recommend Lady's Generosity, because staggering enemies, depending of course of which talents you choose later, should be way easier for you, even easier to than just killing enemies. So you probably get more out of this talent in correlation to other talents that we will see later than you get from melee killing blows. But this one here isn't bad as well as Gift of the Grail, always a good choice for the team play. But I think you get the most out of Lady's Generosity in this particular case here. Going over to level 10 talents, first we have Virtue of the Ideal. Killing enemies increases power level by 10% for 10 seconds, and this one stacks up to 3 times, meaning that you will get 30% more power level for 10 seconds if you are able to kill enemies fast enough. Second, we've got Virtue of the Knightly Temper. Crit strikes instantly slay enemies if their current health is less than 4 times the amount of damage of the critical strike, and the effect is halved against lords and monsters. And Virtue of Heroism, power level of heavy attacks is increased by 25%. All 3 have that kind of usage. If you want to go for a crit build, which this one isn't, you probably go for Virtue of the Knightly Temper. If you want to go for boss killing or monster killing build, I would recommend power level of heavy attacks. But this is more meant to be like a tank build or more of a team play build. And even in other cases, if you don't want to really commit to one of the two cases I just said, killing enemies to increase your power level should be the best choice in any case. This is something you can always achieve at any time during the game, and during most events you will keep up your power level at the maximum of 30%. So yeah, you just deal a lot of more damage if you going with this talent here. Level 15 talent row should be well known by now for most players, I think. We've got Bulwark, enemies that you stagger take 10% more damage from melee attacks, and the stagger damage increases each time you stagger an enemy more often. We've got Smiter, the first enemy hit always counts as staggered, and afterwards you just go with the damage increase against staggered enemies. And Enhanced Power, increasing your power level by 7%. I've mentioned this earlier in other build videos, but Enhanced Power is more meant to be for ranged characters that don't fight in melee very often, and since you don't have any ranged equipment on the Grail Knight, apart from bombs maybe, one of these should be your way to go. And in relation to Lady's Generosity, that you gain health on staggering enemies, Smiter might be even the best option here, since the first enemy you hit always counts as staggered, meaning if you hit an enemy, you will trigger the stagger effect, and this gives you even more health gained back if you need to. Not to mention Knight's Challenge, that not only you stagger the enemy, which is very important, you also deal 25% more damage against this enemy. Looking at the level 20 talent row, we've got Virtue of Duty. You gain an additional quest. Simple as that. Virtue of Purity increases the potency of the blessings rewarded upon completion a quest by 50%. And Virtue of the Penitent, I hope I said that right. The Lady's Favor now grants a repeatable quest that rewards a potion of Strange to Marcus upon completion. Let's talk about Virtue of Purity first. It sounds great increasing your quest reward by 50%, but it isn't that big of a deal in the end if you just play with it. You don't get that much out of it, depending, of course, of which reward you will get. They are random, and you can't really choose what you get. So even the health regain, as a passive health regain that you can get from time to time, isn't that big of a deal. So most rewards give you like 10% plus on anything. So in this case, with the 50%, you just get 15% instead of 10%, which isn't that big of a deal. Virtue of Duty sounds great, having an additional quest. So you get 3 quests instead of 2. But this one here, Virtue of the Penitent, might sound a bit strange the way it is written, since it sounds like you would replace your 2 random duties with just 1 quest, but the quest for the Strange potion is the 3rd quest upon the other 2, meaning that you will have your 2 normal quests and you get a quest for the potion, which makes this one here the strongest of the 3 talents in this row. If you have a potion equipped or a grime or something like that, the potion that you will get as a reward will be dropped on the floor, so you can even give it to teammates if you don't need it, or you can carry it, or whatever. meaning this will help your team more than probably the other two talents in this talent row. I'll just show a quick gameplay that you can see what this quest is all about. I just started a level so that you can see on the right side here we've got 2 of the normal quests and the 1 quest for the potion. And the potion quest is always slaying enemies. In this case 100 enemies. You don't have to do this by your own. Your team can help you with this, since everyone from the team can complete these tasks. So this one might even be easier, or the easiest one of all quests you can get. As you can see, in this case I got Slay Elites for plus 10% power level and Finding Tomes for plus 10% damage reduction. Both not that hard to achieve, but it always depends, of course, of your difficulty level. If you play on lower difficulties, you might not see so many elites, so you don't get the power level increase so early. And if you're a new player, you might have problems with finding tomes or finding rhymes. So you always have to rely on someone, in this case, to know the locations. If you get on higher difficulties and you play the game more often, these two aren't a big of a deal, of course. But yeah, slaying enemies is something you can always do in any level. Sometimes you get a quest to kill a monster, which can show up, and sometimes not. If you play on maps where you have to have a monster encounter for sure, like against the Grail, for example, it's not a big deal. It's no problem. But there can be maps where you don't find any monster at all. So you've got one brick quest if you want, a quest that you can complete because you can't find the requirement for this quest. So the talent here is independent of everything that can happen on the map. You will always find enemies to slay, and you always get your potion. And as it said, it's repeatable, so you can get it even more times than the other quests. So back again to the talents, and next we've got 3 virtues as well. First, virtue of stoicism. 50% damage taken is regenerated as temporary health after 5 seconds. Virtue of discipline. Timed blocks increase your power level by 20% for 6 seconds. And increases push, arc, and stamina regeneration by 30%. This one here might be okay. I said that I wanted to build more of a tanky version, but still not. I'm not going for this one, since I think Virtue of Stoicism is still the superior talent in this case, meaning that you get health instead of taking damage, but of course only 50% and only after 5 seconds, meaning that you have to stay alive for 5 seconds to get benefit of this talent. But I don't think this is too hard to achieve, so I would recommend Virtue of Stoicism in this case. This talent here is good for damage builds, but it requires you to time your blocks well. If you are an experienced player, this might not be a problem, but if you aren't, or aren't just good at blocking or time blocking, to be more concrete, this could be a problem for you. It's a great effect if you can match it and get it out properly. But in most cases, I would say Virtue of Stoicism is the best choice for most players, in my opinion. And at last, we've got the career skill talent row, starting with Virtue of Audacity. It's a second step attack to the Blessed Blade, dealing devastating single target damage. We've got Virtue of the Precious Knight. Killing an enemy with the Blessed Blade increases movement speed by 35% for 15 seconds. And Virtue of Connivance changes the Blessed Blade to a horizontal slash that cleaves through and staggers multiple enemies. Let's have a look first at Virtue of Audacity. Meaning, after you use your ultimate here, number 1, and as you can see, you get a second step attack. Potion of Concentration, to show it more often. You get your first hit and the step afterwards. And again, step and step. As you saw, there's a short window of time between the two attacks. It is important to know that you are vulnerable between these two attacks, meaning you have your time, your career skill very good during this time. Otherwise, you might get damaged or even go down while performing your career skill. This happens way more often than you think if you aren't carefully enough. If you get your timing right, this is probably the best single target damage you can have on this career. And it's great against monsters or any kind of boss. It deals such great damage. But, as I said, be careful when using it. The second talent here is a bit too niche in my opinion, and it's even worse than the other two. So I wouldn't recommend this one if you can choose one of the other two. My personal preference, because I don't like the second step attack, it makes me too vulnerable, like I said, because I'm one of these persons that get hit during the two steps. And I like to choose this one here to cleave better through hordes. Instead of bosses, I want to go more on AoE damage. So, as you can see, you don't get from the top to the bottom, but from the right side to the left side. Meaning that if you step during the animation to the left side, you can hit even more enemies during the attack animation. And it even staggers enemies, like it said, multiple enemies. Meaning that you combine it pretty well with Smiter, that your first enemy always counts as hit, and this should stack up with the increased damage, and it stacks up with Lady's Generosity, that you can gain temporary health out of staggering enemies. So this is a pretty decent combo in my opinion to choose these three together. And yeah, like I said, it's more sought against hordes than it is against bosses. Bosses is more like Witch of Audacity, but I would prefer to get rid of hordes faster than I am of getting rid of bosses, because in my opinion there are classes that can do it even as good or as well as a Grail Knight does, and you even deal a great amount of damage with this cleave attack to bosses. So I would recommend to you Virtue of Confidence. We are done with the talents. Now we take a look at the equipment. And as you can see, I like to use a sword and a shield and the executioner sword. I like to have a more defensive option, and since you have the perk that you can block rob fire throwers with a shield, I like to use the normal sword and shield. So I have a defensive option, and I use the executioner sword to cleave through hordes more easily. As you can see on my sword and shield, I have the properties of +2 stamina and my increased push and block angle. And assisting an ally under attacks restores 15 temporary health for both players, meaning for me and the person I just helped. I like this team play option on my weapon. Helping your teammate get rewards out of it, and yeah. And for my executioner sword, I like to use plus 10% power versus chaos and plus 20% crit power. And critical hits increase the attack speed for 20% for 5 seconds. Also using this, as you can see here, on my mercenary and I think on my huntsman. You can cleave for hordes, as I said, or you can even use it against bosses to deal devastating damage, apart from your career skill, of course. So this is just, of course, personal preference. If you say you can play better with Bretonnian longsword, which I can't, I never learned to play it properly. This also might be a good option for you. It's always hard to recommend weapons because it always depends on your gameplay and how you like to play. For example, I personally don't like great hammers or maces. I just can't play with these slow weapons. But this doesn't mean that other people would like to play them are bad in any case. If you're good at it, use your great hammer, for example, instead of the executioner's sword. This is just something I'm just comfortable with and which I prefer, and I think, in my opinion, has a great usage. So I would recommend these two as your weapons. For the necklace, charm, and trinket, you might have seen it before because it's my standard equipment. For my necklace, I always use plus 2 stamina and plus 20% health. I think this is the most you can get out of it. Can be, of course, switched against other stuff if you want to play a more crit-focused build on other classes, but I think this combination here and the combination of these two and bark skin, taking damage reduces the same as the damage you take from the same source by 40% for 2 seconds. I think this is the most defensive and best option you can get for most classes. For my charm, I use plus 5% percent attack speed and plus 10% power versus Skaven. So in this case, I have plus 10% power versus Skaven here and plus 10% power versus Chaos here on my weapon. So I have them both in any kind of combination. And for the trait, I use Decanter, increases the duration of potions by 50%. Of course, you can choose the effect to get all combinations of potion in if you drink one of them. But the duration is halved, if I remember correctly, so it isn't that useful in comparison to the increased duration. For example, as you saw maybe during the Ultimate Showcase, you can use your ultimate or career skill, whatever you want to call it, way more often if you have this trait on your charm. Which is also a good option if you want to play more team play focused, is to use the trait that gives you your teammates the effects of your potion you use. So everyone in your group benefits from it if you are close enough to each other. And for the trinket, I have two different options. If you play on Cataclysm, where you don't carry Grimes until the end of the level, I would recommend the properties of plus 10% cooldown reduction and plus 5% crit chance. And as a trait, I like to use Grenadier. You have a 25% chance not to consume your grenade in usage. If you play on Champion or below, or Legendary even and below, where you carry Grimes, I would recommend that you switch out the crit chance for plus 33% curse resistance, meaning that you don't get infected too much on carrying a Grime or a member of a group carrying your Grime. and you have more base health upon you, so you don't get down so easily if you get hit. So, that's gonna do it. I really hope I could help you, and I hope you have a nice day. Bye.